Hey everyone, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever's going on in your life, I'm delighted that you decided to spend a little time with me today. Hey, so I'm wondering, what do you know about dog food entrepreneurship? Are there some myths about leadership and initiative that you can take? And what the heck even is initiative and why does it even matter to us? So today we get to talk to Josh Spodek. I was unfamiliar with Josh, but got introduced to him by a very good friend by the name of Sean. Sean is one of my favorite people. Sean Glaze, one of my favorite people in the whole world. Sean said, you got to talk to Josh. And I said, all right, let's see. So then he sends me this information, right? Josh is a PhD and MBA, a TEDx speaker. He wrote the #1 best-selling book, Leadership Step by Step, hosts a cool podcast, 5 Ivy League degrees, and a PhD in astrophysics and an MBA from Columbia, where he studied under a Nobel laureate. But there's a whole bunch more reasons that we need to listen to Josh. And I'm just excited that he's joining us today. So what's going on, Josh? How's things?
Glad to be here. Things are going pretty well.
Good, good.
Really excited to be here, yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, I'm really glad that you're here too. I mean, Sean does not recommend guests that are crappy. So I'm really excited that he introduced me to you and connected me to you because you've got this book called Initiative that I have to tell you, like, I thought I had it. And then I read the book and I'm like, boy, I got some work to do. So how do you define initiative?
So initiative, as I teach it, is the ability to identify problems that could use solving and to solve them in a way that's sustainable, that it keeps going so that the people that you help reward you enough to keep it going. So it's helping others and overlapping with something that you're passionate about yourself.
Interesting. Well, I love the helping others part, but I've never heard that it's the overlapping of something that we're passionate about. That's really interesting. So why is that so important? I mean, one of the things you talk about in your book is the myth of too many passions. So, I mean, doesn't it get watered down? Why do we need that, man?
Yeah, I've been teaching this for a long time, both to clients as well as to students. And at the beginning, I would give people a project. I would say, start working on something, take initiative and start working on a project, and not just a classroom project, but something to help people out in the world. And I noticed that a lot of times students would switch projects in the middle. And whenever they switched, they'd always like the second one more. Why else would you switch? And I found that at first I started working, how can I help people to pick the right one in the first place so they don't have to switch? And over the years, I realized that trying to solve their problems for them, trying to figure out for them what their priorities were, was robbing them of the ability to learn that for themselves. The myth of people having there's a lot of people out there who say, it's actually, to me, two sides of the same myth. One of them is people say, I don't have any passions. The other is, I have so many passions, I don't know which one to act on. Both of them are symptoms of people not knowing their priorities and not knowing what they want to do. And school really reinforces this. School tells you what to study. I mean, you might pick your major in college, but up until college, you're told what to study, what's important in each subject, when to be where, and how you do well is you have to answer questions on a test. And we exit school never really having examined our own values. We might have to take a test or write a paper on what Plato considers values, but we don't know our own. And when you don't practice identifying what's important to you, you don't know what's important to you. And so people feel like, I have so many passions, I don't know which one to work on. When actually, if they did work on one or two of them, they would find things quickly shaking out. Anyone who started a project, if they find that they don't like it, it leads them to another one. If they do like it, the ones that don't measure up, they get rid of right away. Like the stuff that I'm working on now, I'm so glad that I picked them over the things that I don't do anymore. But before I picked them, I was like, which one should I do? Which one should I not do? I tear my clothes for like weeks of like, which one should I, months or years, which one should I do? And until you do it, until you pick something and act on it, it's really tough to know what your values are. It's like in a relationship. You might see someone and find that person attractive just to look at, but you got to get to know them. You got to know what their history is. You got to get into a fight with them sometimes. You got to have your ups and downs. Then true love can develop with a person. With a project, same thing. You got to know, you got to do it. And most people, if you don't mind my jumping ahead, a lot of people, they get given advice like, just give it a shot, see what happens, or work really hard. They have a belief that either work really hard on something and the passion will emerge, or a lot of people think, well, they look at like Bill Gates and they think, well, he must have had such a big passion. Of course, he wanted to start Microsoft. And if I had a passion like that, well, eventually maybe I'll find it. And they end up waiting their whole life, waiting for their passion to show up. Initiative leads you to start doing something. And in the book, initiative in the book, it gets you to do things that specifically work, not just try or go out there and fail, but to act intelligently, effectively, to take you step by step from starting on a project, which may be something that only its greatest value is it leads you to the next project, or maybe something that you really love, but you really have to try. So all this is a long answer of why people think that they have this myth of having too many ideas. There is a ranking internally, and you have to take initiative to find out which ones you care about more and which ones you care about less. That was a long answer. Sorry about that.
No, that's a good answer. But so that means, though, to kind of distill it down, I mean, we have to try something. We shouldn't be paralyzed with nothing. But eventually, right, if we're not feeling the juice, it's okay to quit, to steal kind of Seth Godin stuff, right? It's okay to feel the dip, jump out of it, and then do the next thing. And that's quite all right. Is that kind of what you're saying, or am I totally missing your point?
I'll go even farther than that, because a lot of people think, they have multiple ideas and they think, okay, there's A, B, and C. Which one should I do? I'm not sure which one I like the most. And they fear that if I work on A, but what if it's really B? And then they'll have some fear that it's like almost as if they're going to wake up one day married to the wrong person with a kid and a mortgage and they're stuck. Well, getting married, that's another issue. But as for starting a project, what actually happens is that if you pick A, and let's say A becomes awesome. Well, great, you got lucky on your first try. But what if it's not? What if B was really the one that was perfect for you? What will happen? A will lose its luster, but B will never lose its luster. And in fact, the fastest, most effective way to find out that it's B is maybe you get lucky and choose it in the first place, but otherwise, if you pick A will drive you to B because you'll develop the skills and experiences and the self-awareness doing A to be like, this isn't what I wanted to do. I got to switch to B. And you will not look back at the time that you spent on A with regret, which is what most people fear. You'll look back at A with gratitude for having gotten you to B. And then if B runs out and leads you to C, you look back at gratitude with both A and B. Everyone who acts on something, even if it's the wrong thing for them, looks back and wishes they had chosen earlier.
Ooh, I like that. The choose earlier, make the best of it, and then be willing to move and vibrate and go different directions in order to get to the next place. So how did you learn this, Josh? I mean, how did this happen to you? How did you happen upon this whole initiative?
One of the big things, I mean, there's a few big things. One of the first ones was when I was finishing graduate school, I'd lost my passion for physics. I still love physics, but the practice of physics, doing research in today's world, not really what I wanted to do. It wasn't like being like Einstein, like I hoped it would be. And I asked the question, what can I do with a physics degree? But this is not an effective question because having more education should not limit me. But I felt limited. I felt like I could go to Wall Street, I could go into industry, I could keep doing research. None of them was really interesting to me. I ended up starting a company. I co-founded a company with a friend. And that opened up a whole new world to me. So entrepreneurship, I really loved. But a couple things happened. One was that I followed the model. This is the late 90s and early 2000s of like the dot-com bubble stuff. And I was like, I'm going to go for an IPO and we're going to try to build really fast and big and so forth. What you referred to in what I call the dog show, the entrepreneurship dog show of trying to make the company fit not to what was best for the customers or best for me or best for the employees, but was best for the judges of I wanted big investment. So I had some, Shark Tank wasn't around then, but I wanted to do something like really doing well at a dog show, being the best at not satisfying the customers, not at satisfying the clients. That would have been very effective. So entrepreneurship got me out of feeling stuck, but it left me trying to satisfy the wrong group of people. And then later I started teaching it. Well, I went to business school and I found a lot of people there were saying, I want to start a company. They wanted to start companies. And I asked a lot of them, why aren't you if you want to? And the number one answer I got was, I don't have a great idea. But when I talked to people who founded companies, and it doesn't have to be founding a company, but okay, looking at just the for-profit companies, because it could be nonprofits, it can be also starting community organizations, it could be starting initiatives at work without leaving your company. the number one, if I ask them, is what you are doing now what you started with? Never did the person say yes. It always changed. And I concluded that it was not the idea, because the same thing that motivated some people discouraged others. What it told me was it's the social and emotional skills to be able to take a rudimentary idea that's not good enough yet for the market and learn how to get advice, learn how to iterate, learn how to, and this is not, it's really earlier stage than what you see if you do like lean launchpad, stuff like that. I love those things for a certain audience, but most people don't yet have an idea that's fully formed. They have something that's so rudimentary. Most people are embarrassed to share it. So the early exercises in the book are how to share stuff really early in a way that prompts people to not judge you, but give you advice instead. Then I started teaching, and that started really, then I would get hundreds of students and clients a year in order to test these things. And so I could refine things like I talked about earlier, not trying to get people at first to know exactly what to do right off the bat. That creates such a big hurdle, and it keeps people from acting on their interests, and it keeps them in a job longer than they need to because they feel they have other options. And staying in a job longer than you need to means you're not going to have as many responsibilities. You're not going to get as much pay. You're not going to have the relationship with your manager that you could. And I mean, there's lots of other things, but it was really feeling trapped, feeling like I did what school told me. I was at the peak, I was at the pinnacle of what school taught, and I felt trapped. And when I teach students and clients this material, they tell me they feel the opposite of trapped. I mean, sometimes they come to me and say, I want to get out of school early, which is a little dangerous. I have to tell them, get that advice from your parents if you're going to think about dropping out of school, because I don't want the administrators getting mad at me. But they start having that feeling. Some of them never having had an idea, like they took my class not knowing it was going to be experiential. They thought it was going to be like writing papers. And next thing you know, they realize there's stuff I really love more than anything else. And I want to do this. It's in everybody. I haven't had a student yet who's been, at least they haven't told me that like I couldn't find something that I really cared about.
Interesting. I like that. I think that's really powerful that eventually they come to that conclusion. But that sounds good. I mean, but isn't there like an archetype for those types of people, or do you really believe, Josh, that that's anybody?
There are certain people who, for whatever reason, emerged from their youth and they appear to be a born entrepreneur, or they appear to be a born salesperson. And I don't know how it happens, but it comes through experience, even if they seem born that way, because no one is born selling. I mean, no one's like, wow, buy this, or what are your needs? Everyone learns it somehow. And what I believe is that a lot of people early on in life, they face some sort of challenge, and it's an easy, sometimes it's an easy challenge, and they solve it. And then it happens that later in life, a medium challenge hits them, and they solve that one partly based on the skills that they learned on the first one. And then later, some really big, hard challenge faces them. And now based on the easy and medium ones, they can take on that hard one. And they just grew up, and sometimes it's because they had a parent who guided them through it. Sometimes it's just chance. But if you have 7 billion people in the world, a certain number are going to hit easy, then medium, then hard challenges. Some are going to get hard challenge right off the bat, and they're going to feel like, oh my God, that, like, I don't know, maybe they try to start some lemonade stand and like a storm hits or something happens and it's overwhelming and they think it's just not, I can't do it. Maybe they could have if they had the challenges in a different order. So I think a lot of people just never got the challenges in the right order at the beginning. That doesn't mean if they were given the challenges in an effective order later, that they couldn't learn the skills later. But I believe that everyone learns, every skill that you have, you learn somehow. Whether it's walking, talking, cooking, starting companies, sales, whoever it is, didn't have it at some point. They got it through experience. And if they can learn it, anyone else can too.
Wow. That certainly is encouraging, for a lot of folks that feel that they can't, because they can, and you will, but you have to do something. You can't just sit there. It's not going to happen, right? Inspiration doesn't hit us like an apple, like Isaac Newton, right? That isn't how this works.
Not as far as I know. I mean, sometimes people do get lucky. Someone they happen to be in the right place at the right time. Although that tends to happen, chance favors the prepared mind. It happens most when you prepare for these things. And when you are prepared, these ideas come all the time. I mean, when you've started a few projects, whether they're for-profit companies, whether they're community organizations, whether they're going to your manager and not just proposing an idea, but sharing something early and working with your manager into developing an initiative at work. And so you get responsibility, you get a team reporting to you. Everyone who's had a few of these things, the more that you do it, the more you find that you can do it, and the more opportunities you find, the more opportunities you can create. It's a skill. It's, if you keep lifting weights, you can lift heavier weights. If you keep starting projects, you can keep starting more projects. If you don't go to, when I was a kid, I used to see people going to the gym and I wasn't strong. And I thought, if only I were strong, I could go to the gym too. Totally backward. Being strong doesn't make you go to the gym. Going to the gym makes you strong, assuming you know what to do there. Likewise, starting a company, being good at entrepreneurship doesn't get you your first company. Being good at solving problems doesn't solve your first problem. Starting something develops those skills. It's just the hurdle is really big for a lot of people. The big value of this book is it's step-by-step, starting with early ones that anyone can do. They're still valuable if you've done it many times before. And then it's all these little baby steps. One leads to the next and the next and the next. And they're tuned after working with hundreds of different people. And it's not, it kills me when people say, oh, that seems like a great idea. Go for it. You can do it. And you're like, thanks, Mom. But that's not actually getting me going. That doesn't actually sell a product. It doesn't actually get me to understand what the customer's looking for or what my community needs to stop that development that's going to knock down the mall or something, the park or something like that.
Yeah. Wow. No, that is one of the most powerful things about your book, Josh. Having read through it, I think the exercises help. And one of the things that you kind of front load those exercises with is your 7 principles, which I think are super powerful. Personality matters less than the skills you can learn. The idea of a lifetime comes once a month, which I'd love to explore a little bit. Bunch of other ones. You got one other one that I really love, and that's number 7. It totally resonates with me, and that's almost nothing inspires like helping others so much that they reward you for it. So let's talk about that one, and then we'll go back to number 2 as well. So almost nothing inspires like helping others so much that they reward you for it. To me, intrinsically, really resonates with me because I love to help. I love to be a service. So what did you mean by that, though? I want to make sure that I got this one right.
Yeah, it sounds like you got it. I mean, one of the big things is there's 2 types of inspiration I found. One of them, on December 31st, there's a lot of people running around saying, I'm going to go to the gym twice a week for the next year, something like that. And we all know around February, they're not going anymore. That feeling of inspiration tends to fade when it's purely about yourself. As much, and a lot of people feel like, people say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I feel like you're putting the cart before the horse. It's not being an entrepreneur. You want to serve others. This inspiration to serve others, that doesn't fade. And in the middle of these exercises, there's one exercise where you go and talk to people who have the problem that you want to solve. And most people have some sense of what the problem is. Something happens often during this exercise, which is that someone will say to them something like, well, a couple things. One is people will say, this is my problem. And you have to write it down in their words. And you have to listen very hard. And you will learn, no matter how well you think you know the problem, they know it differently. Not better or worse, but they know it from their perspective. And that empathy that you get from feeling their problem, from hearing what it is for them that's slightly different from yours, it gives the problem a real gravity. People connect with it more. And then if it happens, often in this step it happens that one of them will say, when can I get this? Is it ready yet? When can I buy your service? When can I buy your product? That feeling is like elation. That when students come back from that exercise or clients come back from that exercise and I ask them how it went, this project becomes real in a way that it never had before. And even that is nothing compared to when you get your first revenue. When you get your first sales coming in and people thank you, like, take my money. That feeling is just elation. Because you are helping them make their world better. They're saying your product or your service for me is more valuable than my money, more valuable than my time if they're going to volunteer with you. They don't have to do that. They're choosing that you're making their life better. That makes you want to do it more and more. And that feeling, Frances Hesselbein, one of my mentors, she says to serve is to live. I've never heard it more simply. And it's a tremendous feeling to serve others. And it's weird when people think leadership is about telling people what to do, or the guy in the corner office, like with the suit and all. That's not leadership. That's authority. I got nothing against it. But leading is understanding what motivates people, what people care about, and being able to helping them achieve what they wanted. Sales is very related. Entrepreneurship is very related. Taking initiative in order to help others, it's a deeply rewarding feeling. And it's, in my epilogue in the book, I talk about on a social level, society, we don't have that like we used to. This book is written for the individual. It's written for someone to read and improve their life, to get the tools to vastly simplify what it takes to create a project that you care about, that you love, that serves others. I hope on a social level that it affects society, that we learn to serve others more and want to do that more and get that reward. So that's a little editorial from me on the epilogue.
No, that's awesome. I mean, service to me is super important as well. I mean, I believe the same thing. Instead of just, to service to live, like Francis says, I believe if we replace sales and service, because I work on sales teams, that's the same thing, right? We want to serve people. That's ultimately the goal. If we can't serve them, we can never sell them. They won't buy, or not without remorse anyway. So that's a big thing for me. So I really dig what you said there, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I can hear it, maybe some people work for some monopoly where you can force sales on someone, but I don't think that's this community. I think we want to find out what problems people have to help them so that they want to come back for more.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep. Absolutely.
They didn't teach me that in physics.
Yeah. I didn't learn that in computer science either, Josh. So that's okay. So yeah, I'm a computer science major. So yep. Same way, brother. So
we're geeks.
Yeah, we are. Absolutely. So, which makes it all the more fun, right? To really think about this. I mean, a lot of times geeks get trapped in the whole, in the bits and bytes and the algorithms and the exponents instead of really focused on the people. And I really think, years ago, I worked for a company. Our slogan was "The geeks shall inherit the earth." Uh-huh. And I got to tell you, I believe that we've finally seen that that's true. But I would add the geeks with hearts shall inherit the earth. Those of us who actually are heart-focused, heart-centered, and serve with our heart are going to inherit the earth and are going to change the world.
It makes me think of being on both sides of bringing an engineer to a sales meeting is like a very risky proposition. I've been on both sides because every now and then, okay, when I'm the salesperson, when I'm the CEO, and I bring in an engineer, and sometimes they say, "Can you do X?" And before I can answer, and like we don't have it yet, but I know if we work at it, we can get it. And then the engineer pops up with, before I can say the word, "Nope, don't have it." And you're like, you just killed the sale. And of course you don't say that in the moment. So you leave and you're like, you just killed the sale. Why did you do that? And they're like, I was honest. And you're like, we can do this in time. We got to find out what their needs are and then we can do it. And they're like, yes, but we can't do it right now. And if I want to be honest and not lie, I'm like, you're missing the meaning behind the relationship here. It's not about facts and figures. They're important. But we have to learn what their needs are. Maybe we can even solve it better than from learning these answers. And of course, I've been on the other side too, where I was early in my career. And I felt like honesty is so important because if I'm honest now, then they'll know that they can talk to me and I'll always give an honest answer later. It's really, what is the other person's interest? How can you meet their interests? It's them first.
Yeah. I think that's really important. Putting other people first definitely is a great way to go about things and certainly helps us serve even better. But let's get back to this idea, Josh, because I think that's important. You said the idea of a lifetime comes like once a month. Now, Come on, man. Lifetime's a long time. And you're saying every month, once a month, we get the idea of a lifetime. What does that mean?
So a lot of people think that they have this idea and they think it's this great idea and they hold on to it with all they've got. And a couple of things happen when you do that don't help you at all. One is that you tend to push your idea onto others because you think it's so great, as opposed to listening to them and finding out whether it works or not for them. And another thing is that when you could change it, you don't. And when you could listen, you talk. And that doesn't help your sales, doesn't help your product, doesn't help your relationship. The other thing is sometimes maybe the product really, no matter what you do, isn't going to work. And people fear this might be the only one I got. I better stick with it. And so this thing that you ought to have shut down, that the world is not benefiting from, or your life is not benefiting from. You're like, I gotta do what I can. The next great idea is a month away. Now, people could argue with this, but as your skills develop, they come more and more and more. The issue is not how many ideas can I come up with. The execution is what takes a long time. So if you have a great idea, it may take you years, decades to develop it. It may take you weeks. I don't know. It depends on the idea and the market and so forth. But if you stick to that idea and you will not let go of it no matter what, if you are driven by a scarcity mindset, then you will hold on to that idea. But it's not the case that if you let that idea go, you'll never have another idea again. You're more likely to get a better idea the more you keep on working on some ideas. Bill Gates, I'm sure, had many, many ideas. I don't know why I picked him. I mean, pick any successful entrepreneur, pick any big problem solver. They come up with many more ideas than they can act on. The problem, once you go through this book's exercises, once, you're going to be flooded with ideas. It's not going to be once a month. It's going to be like all the time. The challenge is staying focused. The challenge is rejecting ideas and sticking with the one until something is so much greater that you're like, I got to switch. But that's very rare. I mean, especially when people are feeling rewarded, when people are rewarding you for solving their problems, you're just going to want to stick with it.
So how do we focus, Josh? What are some tips on staying focused? I mean, now that we've read your book, we love your book, we love Initiative, we've got a lot of it. Now we're doing stuff. How do we stay focused so that we actually accomplish something instead of just consistently starting a whole bunch of things?
Well, if you actually have done the exercises, then you will emerge with a project. I mean, short term, the book, you do these exercises, you'll emerge with a project that you love, that's solving problems for others, that you love the feeling that they support you for it. Long term, it will give you the ability to solve problems in general that help others, that they reward you for. So if you're sometime in the future, say you start some project and it goes through to completion, you sell, you get hired for some new thing, you get promoted, whatever happens, you're on some new thing. And now you're working for the manager isn't helping you at all. And the old you would complain and say, well, I guess work is just supposed to be boring, otherwise they wouldn't pay me for it. I hear a lot of people say stuff like that. Well, once you have the ability to start a project and to solve problems that people value and to get the support of people around you, valuable people, including the manager who's not giving you work that you like, you can create a new project. You will never be able to say life sucks. You will have the ability, but also the responsibility to do something about it. Now, so that says that if things don't go well for you, you can do something about it. And you have the responsibility to do something about it. Now, you also asked, how do you stay focused? When you get that feedback that people love what you're doing, that keeps you focused because it's about them. Now, if you get people clamoring for yet another big thing that wants you to leave this one, that's a pretty good problem to have in life. I mean, you can hire people, you can work on multiple projects in different areas in your life. I'm just looking at my life right now. I have my teaching, I have my coaching, I have my speaking, and I have and out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but out of necessity of the world, I see a lot of environmental issues. And so my Leadership in the Environment podcast became bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't want to go into all of that. People can go look that up if they're interested. But I started wanting to do stuff on the environment. I do leadership and entrepreneurial teaching and coaching. I realized that what was missing from the environment was leadership. There's a lot of people telling people what to do. There's a lot of spreading facts and doom and gloom. I don't see this motivating people. I mean, some people, but not the overwhelming majority. And so I stayed focused because I knew the value of leadership and it was relevant to this other big problem. So they folded in together, and I believe that I've not lost focus. I believe on the contrary, the podcast is leading to more leadership opportunities, and leadership opportunities are doing more on the podcast. I can't see myself getting distracted from these core things. I think that happens more and more one of the things I talk about in the book is that most people, when you're at those early stages and you're not really sure what you want to work on, you have various interests. Some of them are passing fancies that will fade. Some of them are hobbies or things that you really enjoy that will endure longer. And some are major life passions. the things at the beginning, if you don't have the skills, you haven't taken initiative yet and figured out what your values are and how to act on them, you don't know what's a passing fancy and what's a big life passion. A lot of people, when they start these projects, they'll pick something early that's like really popular. They're like, oh, I'm going to do a blockchain app. That's really popular. That's going to make me lots of money. Well, it might be that they really love it, but chances are not likely, because there are many, many times more passing fancies than there are life passions. As you work on, so almost always, the first thing you work on will be a passing fancy. That keeps a lot of people from starting, because what's the point? But as you develop the skills, what happens is the first time you do a passing fancy, you run, maybe you do it for a couple months and then you're done and you move on. Well, you don't just rule out that passing fancy, you rule out a whole class of passing fancies. So maybe you realize you don't really like making apps. You're never going to get worried about doing an app again. Maybe you think it's all about the money. And later you realize, I can make a living and not worry about money, and much more enjoy if I'm, working with musicians, if that's what you like to do. Then you're never going to be distracted by just money. I'm not saying don't worry about money. I'm just saying it won't grip you like it used to. And so each time you iterate, each time you go through one of these cycles of doing the exercises, you rule out lower and lower level things each time, or more and more low level things each time. So after you've done this a few times, you're not distracted by money. You're not distracted by fame. You're not distracted. I mean, if those are the things you love, you're going to actually be more. But the things that that are just distractions, more and more distractions. You look at other people distracted by things that you're not, and you're like, why is that person doing that thing that they really don't care about? And eventually, it's only your life passions. You're going to be increasingly focused the more you do these things.
Excellent. Excellent. So lots of good reasons there to have initiative, lots of good reasons to focus, lots of good reasons to kind of try and then be willing to quit. So Josh, if we were to give us one start, maybe you already said it, but let's wrap it up with that. Where's one place, other than obviously reading the book Initiative by you, where would you have them start?
To do what?
Whatever it is they want to do, whatever they want to accomplish. If it's a project, get started on a project, whatever it is.
It's hard for me not to say to do the exercises in the book, because it's exactly what I wrote the book to answer and develop. I mean, the book is the book version of the course. I developed the course to answer exactly that. And so I don't want to sound like I'm selling my book, but it's the only answer. I mean, I put my heart and soul into developing the course and then into writing the book. And it's a set of exercises that you can start from having done nothing in this area before. Or maybe, I've had people do it who have running companies, profitable companies, and they still get value from each of these exercises, doing them in order. And it will lead you to where at the end stage, you will be a peer to the most valuable people in the field, and they will support you. They will have a vested interest in your success. And for a lot of people, sounds like, wait a minute, how am I going to talk to the heads of industry? Well, it's step by step. You can't, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? You got to practice. And even though you start with scales that seem so simple that like, wait a minute, how can this get me to Carnegie Hall? Well, that's how everybody got to Carnegie Hall. All of them played scales, and then a little more complex pieces, and then a little more complex pieces. And eventually the step just before Carnegie Hall is, a smaller stage, but not quite Carnegie Hall. But from there, it's not such a big leap to Carnegie Hall. And that's how, it's just the performance of being a problem solver no one had made scales in this area, the equivalent of scales. That's what I did.
Awesome. Awesome. So folks, if you get $15, you can go buy the book on Amazon. It's $15.26 today on Amazon. Real easy. The title of the book is Initiative. It's Joshua Spodek, Spodek. You can check him out there. But Josh, if people wanted to, they get the book and they have some questions, where would you have them go? What's your favorite social network that people can interact with you on and get to know you even more?
Oh yeah, everything is at joshuaspodek.com. So in the upper right corner, there's Contact Me. There's the blog is also there. There's the book. There's the podcast. It's all there. And if you go to Contact Connect, it'll email me. And that's my favorite way.
Cool. Fantastic. So check that out, folks. It's joshuaspodek.com. That's JOSHUASPODEK.com. Be able to get a copy of the book off of there. Go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, your favorite bookseller. The title is Initiative. Josh, it was great to spend some time with you today, man. Thanks so much for making the time.
Phil, the pleasure is mine.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.